You know that feeling like everything's changing faster than you can possibly keep up, especially when we're talking about artificial intelligence. One minute it felt like this niche research thing, and then suddenly it's everywhere, changing our tools, our jobs, even the world around us.
Well, what's really fascinating is that based on the stack of sources we've dived into for you, that feeling, it isn't just perception. The data strongly suggests the pace of change with AI.
Yeah.
It genuinely seems unprecedented when you stack it up against previous tech revolutions.
Right. We've got a wealth of material here, haven't we? Everything from detailed charts and research papers to company reports, financial data. And it all seems to point towards some pretty dramatic, maybe even record-setting trends in how fast AI is developing and being adopted.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is really to cut through all that noise, pull out the most important insights, and, help you understand what's truly driving this rapid transformation.
Yeah, what makes this speed really unique? Where is this AI acceleration actually showing up? And maybe most importantly, what does it mean for you, whether you're using these tools, building them, or just trying to navigate all this in your life and career? Because this deep dive suggests it's moved way beyond just chatbots now.
Oh, absolutely. It's about fundamental shifts, how we work, what tech gets built, even global power dynamics.
Okay. So let's jump into the data then.
Let's do it.
All right, let's start with that core idea that change is happening faster than ever because of AI. What did the numbers show about the sheer speed of its adoption, compared to other big technologies in history?
The comparison the sources draw is, well, it's striking. Think about the desktop internet or the mobile internet revolution. They saw incredible growth, of course, no question. But AI's trajectory, specifically in how quickly it's gaining users and being integrated into systems, it's happening at a speed that really does look unprecedented on a historical scale.
Unprecedented is a strong word, but yeah, the numbers seem to back it up. Take ChatGPT. The sources call it history's biggest overnight success. Now, okay, the company behind it is 9 years old, but that user growth curve, it's the fastest ever recorded for a standalone product.
It really is. We're talking, 1 million users in just 5 days?
5 days, yeah.
And there's another key difference the data highlights compared to, say, earlier tech adoption waves. The first wave of the internet, for instance, it started heavily in the USA, right? Mm-hmm. And then sort of diffused globally over many years. Mm-hmm. The data for ChatGPT shows something quite different. It basically hit the world stage almost simultaneously, growing rapidly in most global regions right from the get-go. Mm-hmm. By April 2025, it had apparently reached 800 million weekly users.
Wow. And that kind of speed, it isn't just limited to the tools we might use directly, the consumer-facing stuff, right?
Yeah.
The data also shows pretty dramatic growth on the developer side, too.
Absolutely. Look at NVIDIA's ecosystem. And NVIDIA's, a central player here, making the chips powering a lot of this AI boom. The number of developers working within their ecosystem reportedly grew 6 times over just 7 years, reaching 6 million.
6 times.
And alongside that, the number of AI startups actually using those chips and the number of specific applications using GPUs for AI tasks, that also grew incredibly rapidly. The sources mentioned nearly 4x and 2.5x growth, respectively, just between 2021 and 2025.
So why does this breakneck speed matter so much to you, the listener? Well, it means this isn't some gradual, slow-motion shift you can just, watch from the sidelines.
Exactly. The rapid integration of AI is impacting consumers, developers, businesses, governments right now. All at a speed we just haven't really seen with previous tech waves. The effects feel rapid, and they're showing up pretty much everywhere.
And that kind of rapid growth, it doesn't happen in a vacuum, does it? It needs a huge amount of underlying power infrastructure.
That's right. Which brings us neatly to the engine that's fueling all this speed.
Yeah, it looks like there's just a monumental amount of investment pouring into the fundamental infrastructure needed for AI.
And if we look at the bigger economic picture, the sheer scale, and maybe more importantly, the type of capital expenditures happening globally, it reveals a really fundamental shift in the tech landscape. The major players aren't just investing primarily in, say, data storage or network access anymore. The focus is clearly, decisively tilting towards computation, towards intelligence.
It seems like a really rapid shift, too. The sources note that AI went from being mostly a research feature people talked about in, say, 2019 to becoming a major line item in company CapEx budgets by 2023. The combined CapEx of the big 6 U.S. tech companies, it grew by an accelerating 63% year over year by 2024.
Just staggering numbers. And where's that massive investment actually going?
Well, the budgets for what they call hyperscalers, the huge cloud providers like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, they're increasingly focused on specialized chips. like GPUs.
And the liquid cooling systems you need to stop those powerful chips from, well, melting. And designing data centers specifically built for these intense AI workloads. Global hyperscaler cloud revenue itself grew at a compound annual rate of 37% between 2014 and 2024. It's just huge growth.
And NVIDIA, as we mentioned, they seem to be a key beneficiary here. The sources estimate they accounted for over a quarter, 25% of global data center CapEx by 2024. And their installed GPU computing power saw incredible growth too, right? Something like 130% per year between early 2019 and late 2024.
That's the figure, yeah. And the pace of actually building this physical infrastructure is accelerating too. In the USA, the construction value for data centers apparently saw accelerated annual growth of 49% over 2 years through early 2024.
Wow.
There's even this example of xAI building its Colossus supercomputer in just 122 days, which, as the source points out, is faster than it usually takes to build a standard house.
That's amazing. So new data centers are going up at speeds that feel more like, I don't know, consumer tech cycles, not these massive construction projects.
Kind of feels that way, yeah. The data points out where the capital expenditure goes. Land, obviously, securing the power supply, the chips themselves, and the cooling systems, then the ongoing costs, the OpEx, that's heavily dominated by energy costs, and just maintaining these incredibly complex systems.
And the energy demands.
Yeah.
They sound pretty significant.
They really are. Data centers consumed about 1.5% of global electricity in 2024, and that number has been growing around 12% annually since 2017. Which is more than 4 times faster than total global electricity consumption growth.
4 times faster.
Okay. And the USA alone accounts for a huge chunk, like 45% of global data center electricity use. The sources really highlight this. AI progress is increasingly facing bottlenecks, not just in software or algorithms, but from actual strains on the power grid and just sheer demand.
You know, this reminds me of that classic idea in tech history, Jevons paradox.
Right.
The idea that as something gets more efficient, cheaper, easier to use, overall usage actually goes up, sometimes driving demand for the undergone resource even higher.
Exactly. And we see that principle playing out perfectly with AI here. While the cost of training the absolute biggest AI models is still high, maybe even rising potentially over $1 billion for future models, the sources suggest, the cost of actually using the models for everyday tasks, what's called inference costs per token, is falling dramatically.
A token being like a piece of a word or data the AI processes.
Sort of, yeah. Think of it like that. And the efficiency gains are incredible. An NVIDIA H100 chip, for instance, uses something like 105,000 times less energy for inference than its predecessor from 2014.
Whoa. Okay, 105,000 times less energy. But because it's so much cheaper and easier to run AI now, we just use it so much more that the overall energy demand still skyrockets.
Precisely. That's the paradox in action. So this massive investment, it's the fundamental engine driving AI's rapidly increasing capabilities. Understanding where that money is flowing into compute, into data centers, energy, it helps explain both the incredible advancements we're seeing and these emerging challenges like grid strain.
But that falling cost of using the AI, the inference cost, that means powerful intelligence is getting more accessible and cheaper for you to interact with every day.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got this physical infrastructure being built out at like warp speed. What about the intelligence itself, the actual AI models running on all that hardware? How are they evolving?
Yeah, this brings up a really crucial trend the sources highlight. How quickly different AI models are becoming competitive with each other. And what that means for who gets to build the next wave of AI applications. The data apparently shows that AI model performance is converging rapidly.
Converging, what does that mean in like practical terms? Are they all starting to feel kind of similar in what they can do?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Benchmarks like the LMSYS chatbot arena, which basically pits different models head to head, they show a rapid narrowing of the performance gap between the top AI models over time. And significantly, the performance of open source models is catching up really quickly.
Oh, like the models Meta has released? Llama?
Yeah, exactly. Models like Meta's Llama or others like DeepSeek, they're rapidly closing that performance gap with the big proprietary closed source models, GPT-4, Claude, Gemini. And they often do it at a fraction of the cost for developers and users.
And the sources suggest this whole open source trend is really picking up steam, right? Meta's Llama model saw huge adoption, over 1.1 billion downloads by April 2025.
Yeah, and Meta's CEO has even said publicly he expects open source to be the main type of model developers use in 2025. So you combine that momentum with the falling Inference cost per token we just talked about, making it cheaper to actually run these increasingly powerful models, and you get this powerful trend towards broader access.
So developers have more options than ever before. They can maybe use lower cost models or different API providers and still get results pretty close to the really expensive cutting edge ones.
That's the idea, this convergence and increased accessibility. It's absolutely key if you're involved in building with AI or implementing it in your business or even just using different AI tools.
Yeah.
It increases competition, potentially brings down costs, reduces reliance on just one provider. It basically fosters a much broader landscape for innovation. The sources talk about a proliferation of foundation models, giving developers dozens of choices.
Okay, so that's the infrastructure and the models. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. For daily life, I think, how are companies and developers actually using all this capability?
Well, the data indicates that for businesses, for enterprises, AI adoption is rapidly becoming a rising priority.
Yeah, it feels like we're moving beyond just, experimental projects or pilot programs. AI is being integrated directly into core business processes, into completely new kinds of applications. Over half the companies in the S&P 500 index are now mentioning AI on their earnings calls. That's significant.
It is. And according to survey data in the sources, the focus for these businesses is increasingly shifting. It's not just about cost reduction anymore. It's about driving growth and revenue. Things like productivity gains, boosting revenue, improving customer satisfaction. Those are listed as top objectives for adopting AI.
And they're seeing real results. The sources give examples like customer support agents seeing a 14% productivity boost when using AI tools.
And think about the sheer reach of the big tech incumbents, companies like Meta, Apple, Google, Microsoft. Billions of users, billions of devices across their platforms.
Yeah.
They are rapidly embedding AI capabilities directly into the tools you probably already use every single day.
Yeah, we've seen these huge rollouts. Microsoft Copilot apparently had over 15 billion cumulative chats by the end of 2024. Meta AI reached nearly 1 billion monthly active users by April 2025. Google's Gemini and AI overviews, used by over 1.5 billion people by May 2025, processing something like 480 trillion tokens a month.
Astonishing numbers, a 50x jump year over year for Google's token processing, and Microsoft's dedicated AI business unit alone, estimated to have hit an annual run rate revenue of $13 billion by early 2025. That's up 175% year over year. This isn't just adding features, it's becoming a core part of their business model.
And it's not just the absolute giants either. Enterprise software companies, the tools you might use for work, they're embedding AI too. Examples like Microsoft 365 Copilot, Adobe Firefly for creative stuff, Atlassian Intelligence for teamwork, Zoom's AI Companion, Canva's Magic Studio, Salesforce Agentforce. The list goes on.
And the sources highlight really rapid user adoption and growth for these features across the board. One of the most compelling evolutions the sources detail is the rise of AI agents.
Agents, right.
They seem to be emerging less as simple assistants that just answer your questions and more like service providers that can actually do work for you.
And interest in this idea is surging, apparently. Global Google searches for AI agent went up over 1,000% in just 16 months.
Yeah. And companies like OpenAI, Salesforce, Anthropic, Amazon, they're accelerating product launches for agents with pretty impressive capabilities. Things like automating customer support cases, resolving issues, even controlling computer interfaces to perform complex tasks. And then beyond the big incumbents, you have specialized AI software companies focusing on specific industries. They're growing very quickly, according to the sources. These are companies building AI tools for fields like software engineering, product development, healthcare, legal, customer service, financial services.
And the sources give actual examples showing really dramatic annual recurring revenue growth, the ARR. Companies like AnySphere Cursor seeing plus 300x AR growth, Harvey plus 7x, AlphaSense around plus 2.8x, and several others with huge growth multiples.
Right. These AI native companies are hitting significant revenue milestones like $5 million ARR, about 35% faster than similar SaaS companies did back in 2018.
Okay, so the takeaway for you, the listener, seems to be this. AI is rapidly moving beyond just being experimental. It's getting baked into the core digital tools and software you use every day for work, for productivity.
Exactly. And the emergence of these AI agents points towards a future where AI isn't just providing information, but increasingly taking action on your behalf.
But it's not just staying inside our computers and phones, is it? This deep dive shows AI is having a pretty significant impact on the physical world around us, too.
That's absolutely right. And in some ways, the momentum and The monetization of AI in the physical world, the sources describe it as even more head-turning.
We're seeing the rise of what you could maybe call physical agents, AI moving into vehicles, into manufacturing, defense systems, agriculture, industries you might not immediately jump to when you hear AI.
Think about self-driving fleets. Companies like Waymo and Tesla are listed as having actual revenue-generating deployments now. Tesla's cumulative fully self-driven miles apparently increased roughly 100 times over just 33 months, hitting over 6 million miles by March 2025.
100 times, wow.
And their FSD version 12 is described as using end-to-end artificial intelligence, basically replacing traditional hand-coded C++ programming for things like figuring out where to drive, with neural networks trained on real-world driving data.
That sounds like a really fundamental shift in how that software is actually built. And Waymo's success in San Francisco, getting a 27% share of ride shares in just 20 months, that shows real-world adoption for fully autonomous vehicles, even in a super complex city.
Definitely. Other examples highlighted include Applied Intuition. They provide AI and autonomy software specifically for sectors like auto manufacturing, trucking, construction, and defense.
And Doral, a U.S. defense tech company, is providing AI-enabled autonomous systems. They've apparently seen revenue double year over year for the last 2 years.
Yeah, operating under the belief that national security increasingly requires these AI-enabled capabilities.
Then in mining, there's Cobalt Metals using its machine prospector AI to analyze just vast amounts of geological data, apparently leading to a significantly higher rate of finding valuable deposits per exploration dollar spent compared to the industry average.
It's fascinating. And in agriculture, Carbon Robotics uses AI deep learning and computer vision in their laser weeder robots.
Laser weeding.
Yeah. To identify and zap weeds with lasers. By May 2025, they had reportedly weeded over 230,000 acres, preventing the use of over 100,000 gallons of herbicide. Their goal is to help farmers tackle labor shortages and enable farms to operate 24/7.
So what these examples really show is AI turning traditional physical things, cars, robots, machines, into intelligent, software-controlled endpoints.
The intelligence becomes kinetic, right? It can directly affect the physical world.
Well put. Kinetic intelligence.
And the relevance for you is that AI isn't staying locked in the digital realm. It's increasingly starting to drive the cars around you, build the stuff you use, monitor critical infrastructure, even change how our food is grown. It really blurs the lines between software and physical tech, and that has huge potential implications for safety, efficiency, and just creating entirely new capabilities in the world you live in.
Okay, now we get to the section that arguably affects most people very directly. How AI is changing the nature of work, jobs, the workplace. Yes, the sources really seem to make it clear that AI is fundamentally reshaping things here. We're seeing the rise of what's called cognitive automation, where AI systems can perform tasks that need reasoning, creativity, problem solving, abilities we used to think were uniquely human.
And the pace of improvement in AI's cognitive abilities is, well, the sources describe it as astounding. They note that AI went from having a reasoning capability roughly like a high school student when ChatGPT launched in late 2022 to potentially matching that of a researcher by April 2025.
Wow. That kind of leap in just under 2.5 years? That's incredible.
It really is. And company leaders are definitely thinking about this. The sources highlight perspectives like Shopify's CEO saying, stagnation is slow motion failure. If you're not climbing, you're sliding, which implies companies feel they have to adopt AI to stay competitive.
Duolingo's CEO was even more direct, right? Their memo stated Duolingo is becoming AI first. That AI is already changing how work gets done inside the company, meaning rethinking how they work, automating things like content creation.
And even incorporating AI use into hiring decisions, performance reviews, headcount planning, saying they need to show automation is maximized before adding staff.
And the data backs this shift up. The percentage of U.S. firms reporting they use AI in actually producing their goods or services is rising. It hit about 7% as of early 2025, which was a 21% jump just quarter over quarter.
So employers aren't just playing around with it. They're adopting AI with specific productivity goals in mind.
Yeah.
Things like boosting general employee productivity, getting labor savings for specialized roles, speeding up product development.
And we've seen those specific examples of productivity gains mentioned, the 14% for customer support agents, scientists seeing a 31% boost with AI tools.
If you look at the broader U.S. IT job market between early 2018 and early 2025, the picture is pretty stark. AI job postings apparently increased by a massive 448%.
448%.
While non-AI IT jobs actually decreased by 9%. That shows a really clear shift in the demand for skills related to AI.
It's probably worth noting the historical context here, though. The sources point out that over the past, 77 years, U.S. labor productivity has generally increased alongside overall job growth,
Right.
suggesting that technological advances can lead to both more efficiency and shifts in the types of jobs available, not necessarily just a net loss of jobs overall.
It's a crucial point. And NVIDIA's CEO offers a pretty compelling perspective on this. He argues essentially that you're not going to lose your job to an AI, but more likely to somebody who knows how to use AI effectively.
Mm-hmm.
He believes AI might be the easiest technology ever to program because it understands natural language, and he sees it as a huge opportunity to actually bridge the technology divide. His advice: everyone should learn to take advantage of AI.
He also makes the point that the world isn't really suffering from too many workers, but often from shortages, and AI could potentially help address those labor gaps while boosting global GDP.
So the relevance for you is pretty significant. AI isn't just some hypothetical future threat to jobs. It's a current tool. It's already increasing productivity and actively reshaping the job market now.
Yeah, learning how to effectively use AI could be just as crucial for your career path today as, say, learning to use a computer or the internet was in previous tech eras.
Use that way.
Okay, so with all of this happening, this unprecedented speed, the huge investment, the improving models, AI getting embedded in digital and physical worlds, the impact on work. Who are the big players globally? What does this competition look like?
The sources frame the whole AI monetization landscape with some pretty significant factors to consider, including, yes, rising competition, the momentum of open source we talked about, and notably the rise of China as a major global player.
Right. This brings up a really important question about how these different AI ecosystems are developing around the world and the strategic rivalry that's actively shaping the future of AI globally. Competition is definitely heating up. There's just a huge proliferation of new large language models being released. Multimodal model releases saw a frankly stunning 1,150% increase over 2 years. Language model releases up 420% in the same period.
And as we discussed, the performance of these models is rapidly converging, which makes the whole competitive landscape much more complex. The open source momentum, especially with models like Meta's Llama, is a major factor here too, gaining significant traction with developers because they perform well and are often much cheaper to use than the proprietary models.
And then there's China, which the sources refer to as part of our space race in AI. They highlight that China has dramatically accelerated its capabilities in strategic areas like information technology and AI. It's a core part of their Made in China 2025 plan, aiming for more self-sufficiency in key technologies.
Yeah, Chinese AI capabilities are seen as underpinning nationally strategic areas. Think military systems, cybersecurity, autonomous decision-making platforms. Chinese state media frequently highlights AI integration and reinforces this commitment to indigenous innovation, developing their own tech domestically.
The potential implications if one nation were to gain, AI supremacy, the sources describe them as profound. One perspective cited from OpenAI's Sam Altman raises concerns. Things like, if authoritarian regimes lead in AI, could they compel companies to share user data? Use AI for mass surveillance, develop next-gen cyber weapons. It reflects the strategic anxiety in this global race.
Definitely. The sources also mention that while Chinese companies are working on sort of distilling or replicating the models of leading U.S. AI firms, which poses potential IP risks, they are also rapidly developing their own very competitive models, like Alibaba's Qwen 2.5, Baidu's Ernie 4.5 Turbo, often offered at lower costs. And beyond software, China's industrial robot installed base is already larger than the rest of the world combined, reflecting significant physical automation capabilities.
It's also really interesting how the perception of AI differs. According to a 2024 survey cited in the sources, 87% of Chinese respondents felt AI services had more benefits than drawbacks, compared to only 39% in the USA.
Quite a difference. The sources suggest that national identity, differing public perceptions, these could also play a role in which AI platforms people ultimately choose to use around the world.
And the U.S. response. It's seen as shifting towards treating cutting-edge tech development more as a national interest, described as a welcome adjustment in the sources, with a recognized need for a smart international strategy to support American AI globally.
Another really fascinating global dynamic the sources touch on is the potential for AI to bring the next, 2.6 billion people who currently aren't online onto the internet.
How so?
Well, with the rapid expansion of satellite internet, think SpaceX Starlink, which has over 5 million subscribers, really fast annual growth, expanding coverage. These new users might come online interacting first and foremost with AI agents, not necessarily with traditional web browsers and search bars like we did.
Ah, okay, so an agent-first internet experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that could potentially disrupt the existing tech hierarchies, maybe bypassing or disintermediating the platforms that dominate today. The sources suggest the winners in that kind of scenario might be whoever owns the AI interface, the agent layer, rather than the traditional apps or search engines.
Interesting.
So, to quickly summarize this global picture, U.S. companies have historically led in core areas like AI model innovation, chip design, cloud deployment. China is advancing really quickly, especially in open source development, building out national infrastructure, and coordinating state-level AI efforts. Both countries clearly see AI not just as an economic opportunity, but as a significant geopolitical lever.
Right.
The sources really emphasize that innovation in AI is increasingly not just a business advantage, it's a matter of national posture. And this global race, it's likely to favor the fastest first mover.
So the relevance for you is that the development and deployment of AI is intrinsically tied up in this intense global strategic competition. This contest could influence everything from the tech platforms you use in the future to broader geopolitical power dynamics, even how global tech standards get set, and the potential for AI and agents to totally reshape internet access for billions of people globally. That's a massive trend to keep watching.
Absolutely.
Wow. Okay. That truly was a deep dive. We covered the absolutely unprecedented speed AI is being adopted at.
A massive accelerating capital investment fueling it all.
How the AI models themselves are rapidly improving and becoming more accessible to more people.
And how AI is quickly embedding itself into both our digital tools and the physical world around us.
We also explored its significant impact on the nature of work and jobs.
And that intense strategic global competition that's shaping the future of AI development and deployment.
Yeah, the data we explored really confirms it. AI is accelerating, and it's impacting almost every aspect of life at a speed we just haven't seen before. It's affecting your job, the products you use, the services you access, even the global political and economic balance.
So having this understanding of these core trends, it feels pretty essential for navigating this incredibly fast-changing world.
Definitely. We saw examples throughout the sources, didn't we? Companies experiencing hypergrowth, massive capital investment. It feels reminiscent of earlier tech revolutions, like the railways, maybe?
Yeah.
Or the early internet companies, the mobile boom.
Absolutely. And those past cycles often involve periods of really intense competition, significant capital burn, before the clearer winners emerged and all that value was ultimately realized.
Right. So given the unprecedented scale of investment and the accelerating competition detailed in these sources, here's a final thought to leave you with. Ask yourself, how will the immense economic value currently being created by AI ultimately be distributed among companies, countries, individuals?
And who are the most likely long-term winners poised to capture that value in this incredibly capital-intensive, globally competitive, and rapidly evolving AI landscape?